And good evening, everybody. Welcome in. We're back. It's round number 2 of the eRacr Roval Racing Series, coming to you live tonight from Pocono, a layout and a track that is going to be really unique. And, of course, we'll talk about that in just a little bit. I'm Blake McCandless. I'm joined alongside Sean Butler and Joshua Mendoza tonight. And we are so excited to have you back here tonight for multi-class NASCAR Roval Racing. Sean, I was impressed with what we saw last week. I think what we learned is that this concept, multi-class NASCAR racing on road courses, it works, and especially here in iRacing, it can put on a great show.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think all of us were pleasantly surprised with what we saw last week. You know, we saw a lot of close quarters racing, and we even had a last lap pass for the win in one of the classes. So great stuff last week, and these guys have a big act to follow from last week, but I'm looking forward to watching it. Should be a good time.
They do have a tough act to follow, and many of those drivers who are looking to rebound tonight, Josh, are coming out to tonight. But, you know, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when, you know, everything was put together with this series. As someone who's responsible for helping to facilitate this, what are kind of your initial thoughts after what we saw last week?
I think one of the things just to consider with the whole format has been is just keeping it consistent and all of that. Watching last week's race really proved to me that it was not only something that's going to be awesome if we can continue to see people being consistent and practicing and stuff like that, but it's going to perform, and it's going to leave both the drivers and the viewers wanting more, hopefully. And as we saw with Texas, you know, anything can happen, anything will happen, Blake. And with Pocono, it's going to be a tight, tricky track. We'll see if they can manage to keep the amazing show rolling.
Yeah, that is one thing that is going to be particularly true, Sean. We go from Texas last week, a layout that wasn't well known but was still somewhat easy to grasp. Pocono tonight, that is not going to be the case at all. This is going to be a very treacherous track for these drivers to try to get around.
Yeah, it is. And I had the opportunity to take a few laps around here in the Xfinity car just before we went live. And this is a tight racetrack. So got some very tight corners, very tight spaces to maneuver, especially in the infield. And it's going to be very tricky. It's going to provide a lot of challenges, but it could provide a lot of passing for the infield if these guys do it right. Lots of opportunities to kind of dive bomb, get to the inside, and make some passes. And especially for the guys in the higher classes, that could mean the difference between gaining time, passing everyone in the lower classes, or maybe getting stuck behind somebody. So they'll have to pick and choose where they make the move and how they do it to get the most time out of this. So it's going to be interesting to see just how well these guys handle the traffic, especially in the infield portion.
Well, Sean, you mentioned that you had taken a couple of laps in practice. We were actually able to have our good friend Joshua Mendoza make a little video to kind of explain what these drivers are going to be going through tonight. We'll take a look at that right now.
The eRacr Roval Racing Series continues its season at Pocono Raceway in Long Pond, Pennsylvania. The formal name of the oval circuit is the Tricky Triangle, but today it's not so triangular, but it will be just as tricky as its oval brother. The drivers are going to have to make 10 turns over the course of 2.5 miles. They're going to need to keep it on the track in order to succeed. Follow along with me in the car while we make our way around the international circuit at Pocono Raceway. Turn 1 is a high-speed, high-stakes turn. Avoid wheel hopping and hitting the fence of the corner exit is going to be important to make it through this turn. Entering the infield, you'll notice off-camber driving in an extremely tight road course. Making passes in the infield is not for the faint of heart. You'll be sliding if you're too quick, and you'll be bleeding time if you're too slow. The infield straightaway is a test of patience and precision. You'll need to gather as much speed as possible, but remember your braking point. Missing your braking point can result in bleeding 10 seconds or more while recovering. The last 2 corners are critical to the high-speed section of the track. Executing these is important for making passes through the tunnel turn. Getting on throttle when entering the tunnel turn is extremely important. You won't want to burn your tires up like I did just there. Passing through the tunnel turn, you'll experience a significant bump on the racing surface. You'll need to keep the car collected while maintaining as much speed as possible. Exiting the tunnel turn is fairly simple, but you may be side by side. Getting through the gears is going to be imperative through this section of the track. Entering the straightaway chicane is difficult to do without wheel hopping or cutting the course. Cutting the course will result in a 1 second or more time penalty. Turn 10 is one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult, corners on the track. Your car will get loose, and the drivers with the best throttle control will stand out through this corner. Getting too early on throttle will result in the car getting loose like this. Exiting turn number 10, you'll work your way through the gears as you make your way down the front stretch here at Pocono. And that's a lap around the Pocono Raceway International layout. Now the drivers will take on this tricky circuit for the next 60 minutes.
Josh, that was an amazing video, and I love even that you said, well, I got loose like I did just there. I think even you got to see firsthand just how difficult this track is going to be. 10 turns, that infield section is very narrow, and, you know, this is NASCAR racing. We're used to road courses, but not one where pretty much they're turning right the entire time.
Yeah, it's super difficult. I have spent countless amount of laps going through this track. I still can't figure it out. It is everything about throttle control. I cannot emphasize it enough. You're going to want to be, patient on the throttle. I talked about it last week at Texas, where you just want to be patient getting into the oval section of the course. And that is going to be the same thing for this week, Blake.
It is. It's going to be very important. And by the way, we've had qualifying going on throughout our entire pre-race show. It appears that has concluded, and we are ready to go racing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather and, of course, the starting grid that we'll have here for you tonight. 75 degrees here at Pocono, 110 degrees, so not near what we saw last week at Texas Motor Speedway, where we had 90-degree heat, roughly 130, 140 degree track temperature. So much cooler conditions, partly cloudy skies, and of course a wind that will do a little bit to cool down that racetrack. Well, like we saw last week, Sean, the Cup cars fast, and they proved that yet again today with these long straightaways. Those Cup cars are going to be the class of the field. You see 4 NASCAR Cup Series machines making up the front of the starting grid.
Absolutely. So what the key was last time was, the Cup cars by far were the most dominant on the, I guess, can we say oval portion of this track? I guess we just go ahead and say that. But
we can call it that.
We could just technicalities. But in the infield, maybe not the story, because we saw the trucks were, since they're kind of the slower speed vehicles of this class, they were the better throughout the road course portion of these tracks. So again, going to be interesting to see who has the leg up in the infield, but watch for those Cup cars to be just flying through the field, especially on the NASCAR oval portion of the track.
Those Cup cars will be flying. Once again, it is Matt Danson who sets the quickest time, a 1 minute 28.952 second lap time. Remember, Matt said last week he had never raced at the configuration of Texas, and many of these drivers, I'm sure, are as experienced here tonight. Michael Gonzalez will start to his outside of 129.140. We'll put him second on grid. Third goes to Andrew Trupiano. Fourth is Liam Sheen. They are all in Cup Series cars. All the way back in fifth, nearly 2 to 3 seconds off of that pace, is our truck and Brandon Pinito. And Josh, is something we saw last week. Pinito really strong in that truck. He outpaces some of the Xfinity cars in our field.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been a quick driver, but just because you're quicker than the Xfinity field doesn't mean you're going to be gridded with the in front of the Xfinity field. He's still going to have to work his way through the slower cars that are in the Xfinity field, as those are as they're starting, grouped together as a class on this restart. And I heard somewhere that somebody was going to drop down in the beginning of the race. I lost who it was. They want to take a last to first challenge in the I guess sort of say, I don't know who it was, but you'll see somebody on the start here take that last to first challenge, and it'll be awesome to see.
We are not shy of last to first challenges here at eRacr, are we? And of course, Josh making a very good point there that we will start with everyone grouped up together. So Josh Chin and James D. Gibson will roll off 5th and 6th at the back of the Cup Series class. Gary Weaver will start in 7th. Joseph Selby in 8th. Brian Sabelski, he's last week's winner. We saw a thrilling conclusion last week to the B class series. He starts in 9th, and he'll look, I'm sure, to get one other class win under his belt tonight. He'll start in 9th. Arthur Reimer will roll out and finish out the top 10. Justin Malillo will start in 11th. Matt Taylor in 12th. Ben McDonald 13th, and Philip Bupp will make up the rest of the B class. And back to the trucks we go. Brandon Penito will lead them off. Hunter Reeve, Jeremy Barol, Justin Ping, Clint Roberts, DJ Swiss, Stacy Hunter, Thomas Fensler, and then 3 trucks that did not make a lap time: David Grantham, Caleb Brees, and Brandon Watkins. But we want to be joined by the 4th member of our broadcast crew tonight, Justin Prince, who will be down on pit road. JP, what are you hearing before we get rolling here at a very unique racetrack?
I spoke with Matt Danson before tonight's race, where he mentioned he was really happy with his patience the last time out at Texas Motor Speedway, but he emphasized to me the need to not sacrifice track position through making a mistake in qualifying, where he felt he cost himself last time with the final hairpin at Texas Motor Speedway. He's been able to execute well tonight. It's going to be interesting to see how he fares. Now, one of the main things to note as well is one of the top competitors in practice, Matt Taylor, had a spin in practice. He's among the drivers in the B class that is a favorite. He mentioned this course is a very strange beast, with this infield being extremely narrow with little room for error. Keep an eye on him, where he mentioned it was an excellent learning experience for a car prior to qualifying for the series he didn't have really any experience with.
That is a good report there, Justin. I think that Sean sums it up perfectly. There's not a lot of experience out here at this racetrack, and you even saw them pacing around in the infield. They can barely go too wide when they're going this slow. I can't imagine that we're going to see that when we finally get up to race speed.
Oh, for sure. Like I was mentioning, this track in the infield can barely hold 1 car, let alone 2. So, like I said, people have to pick and choose their moves very wisely. It could have a drastic impact on the rest of the race if they make it through cleanly or not. So they'll have to pick their spots very well. And going back also to JP's report, that is Matt Taylor. That is very amazing, because, as he said, he never really had experience in the Xfinity Series Camaro. That was pretty much his first extended race in that car, and he dominated the race and came 2 corners away from winning the race. So you got to think that's going to be in the back of his mind coming into this race. And all he has to do is kind of clean up that one little mistake he made at the end of that, and maybe he'll take home the B-Class win tonight. So a lot of storylines playing out. Field's going to roll off just momentarily. They make their way through turn 10, the final turn. And Blake, we're getting ready to kick this thing off for round 2.
We are, and you may see on your screen, you may think, well, guess what? They're going the wrong direction. That is not the case at the international layout here at Pocono. We are going reverse of what you would typically see on the Pocono Oval. This is turn 10, and they'll go down the front straightaway just past the start-finish line. Well, they will be roaring into turn 1, a heavy braking zone, and making their way through this treacherous infield section. Glad to have you with us. Round number 2, the eRacr Roval Racing Series kicking off as the pace car will dive to the safety of pit road, and the field will turn over into the hands of Matt Danson and Michael Gonzalez. Barney holding the flag, and we'll get set to let them loose here in just a moment. Green flag is out, and we are racing here.
3 wide to the outside, but he's got to get that car low down. And we got 1 car off already. That's Joseph Selby in the 999. He's able to keep it going, but turn 1 so treacherous. And fortunately, I think that was the only off track we saw as they worked their way through the infield portion.
Well, they stack up behind them, but for the most part, I think a lot of patience being shown amongst these drivers. They are still double wide through this section. You can see the top 6 or so settling out single file behind Matt Danson. Most of the Xfinity cars starting to sort themselves out as well, but here they work out of turn number 5 and into the tunnel turn, not carrying near the amount of speed and obviously not going the exact direction than what we're accustomed to seeing, but this off-camber turn, a real trouble spot, Josh, especially for these Cup Series cars.
Yeah, getting through that tunnel turn is going to be really difficult. As I said in that video before, there's a bump there, and when you're working through those gears, I can tell you what, that just wants to upset the car in every way. As you see right here, Matt Danson going into turn number 10, another one of those tricky corners. We're going to see the best of the best really perform through this turn. They're going to want to get onto the throttle pretty quickly, but just not too much so that their back end doesn't slide out, Blake, as they work their way down the front stretch and into turn number 1.
Well, difficult enough, but that is one lap completed here at Pocono. And the qualifying times we saw roughly a minute and a half on the board. And just as we had last week, this will be a timed race. So we will race 1 hour in complete time. We'll have a halfway caution thrown at 30 minutes time. 27 minutes is when we will close pit road. James D. Gibson, a really hairy moment there as he was working through turn 2, got very sideways. Perhaps even had a little bit of contact from Andy Trupiano as they are battling at the back of the Cup Series class. But this is what we're going to see a lot of. Gibson, and you see Justin Malillo running off the course as we see another truck following suit as well.
And Justin Malillo, I was watching that. Also, Gary Weaver in the 07 of the Xfinity class was off track, and that's what prompted that whole checkup. During my laps testing here, oh, Justin's off again. And as Josh mentioned in the video, you could lose up to 10 seconds. The grass just has absolutely no traction with these cars, so you really have to get back on the track in a hurry. Justin's able to do it, but he's going to fall into dead last, 25th overall. Still got plenty of time to make that up, but that's not what you want to be doing. As we look a little further up, I see the 8 of Matt Taylor just made a pass on the 85 of Brian Sabelski, and Taylor makes his way into second overall in D class.
Taylor making that move, and he's able to complete it successfully. He'll work onto the banking in turn 10. We'll have to watch and see how these Xfinity cars handle, of course, both series, if you will, kind of running. Obviously, the Xfinity series running the low downforce package that they would have in any race. The Cup Series cars, of course, on road courses running the high horsepower, low downforce package. And, of course, no alterations to the trucks right now. And speaking of trucks, Brandon Pinito, we saw him out-qualify some of these drivers in the Xfinity class. And right now, he's not only leading his class, he's starting to work past some Xfinity cars. He's got Arthur Reimer in his sights right now.
Real quick, right over here, Clint Roberts just spun right in front of Hunter Reeve, nearly taking them out as they were entering the infield. I think he's got
Gonzalez is off as well in the Cup Series class. He was running second. He drives off in the infield.
I told you guys, this infield is all about patience and precision. If you don't make the turn, you're going to be off, and all of the grass in this area is downhill. So you're going to be not only trying to find traction, you're going to be fighting for traction going uphill, getting back onto the track.
Well, and you also see Matt Danson on the back corner of your screen. He also went off in turn 3. So Matt Danson surrenders the race lead. He and Gonzalez both made errors through the infield portion of this course. So that will turn the overall lead and A-class lead over to Liam Sheen and James D. Gibson, who we were just talking about struggling a couple of laps ago. And here they are taking over the lead. This is what I was going to worry about, Sean. We know these Cup Series cars are faster, but is the tire wear going to be worse in these Cup Series cars? I think that's something, that lack of rear grip that we often see at these road courses whenever you're running stock cars there. I was wondering if that was going to come into play early on, and we already see lap 2, lap 3, some of the fastest drivers in this field already experiencing issues with rear grip.
I would imagine tires are going to be just as big, if not bigger, here than they were at Texas, because the portion on the oval, because Roval and oval, but the oval portion of the track is a lot longer than it is at Texas. And coming out of these corners, these cars were designed to handle the left and the right turns in the road course, not so much the banking on the oval. So you're going to see a lot of guys trying to get as much speed as they can out of these oval corners. In the tunnel turn right here, as we see the 0-2 of Liam Sheen, our overall leader, go through, these things get kind of loose and light on the exit of these corners, especially at the exit of turn 10. So watch these guys fighting for handling as this run goes on to keep the tires underneath these cars. As we're looking on board this part of the racetrack, very tricky, turns 8 and 9. This little chicane here, but Liam Sheen makes it look easy as he keeps extending his lead over Gibson.
Brandon Watkins back in the Food Country USA machine. He had a spin, and now he's gone off again. Completely missed turn 2. He had an issue with turn 1. He did a full 360, got back, and then he just completely missed, or excuse me, that's turn 4 that he went off of. He's now getting back on the course to turn 5. I have to imagine he's just trying to keep it on the racetrack at the moment, but everywhere we look, Josh, we're seeing drivers really struggle to keep this on the track.
Absolutely. like I said, it's difficult on fresh tires, and it's not going to get any easier as the tires start to warm up. You're going to be searching for grip, and you're never going to find it. You're just going to have to be out there, be on the edge, and use every little bit of talent that you have in your bones in order to keep it on the track, and focus as well. I can't tell you how much. If you look away on the infield section, if you lose your focus for 1 second, you're gonna miss a braking point. You're gonna be off the track, and that's just how it is, Blake.
It is how it is. Justin, what are you hearing down from some of the driver communications that we've had as we see Joseph Selby also off the racetrack?
Well, when it comes to the communications, a lot of drivers trying to be nice and cordial, and these competitors trying to have fun. Justin Malone, for example, after seeing his mistakes, he actually had a smirk on his face after going off the racetrack twice from his situation before, trying to have some fun in that circumstance. Justin Malone, of course, talked about how he doesn't have too much experience either at this racetrack, and it's a part of the layout. He's actually walked in the infield in particular, where it's normally lined with either campers or safety personnel. So he felt it was going to be interesting to see how things fared out in the infield. But to loop up to your race leader and Liam Sheen for a second as well, he mentioned to me he hadn't done much prep, but had done a few laps to get used to the track, similar to what he did before, while in between testing for Watkins Glen for the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series. He mentioned to me he felt like it was going to be Matt Danson he would have to try and beat for tonight originally, so his goal, set the fastest lap, win the race to get the points lead heading towards the next race.
And those points, again, calculated off of Formula One style points. So in each class, 25 to the winner, 18 to second, so on and so forth, as we see a really good battle here for second. James Gibson trying to hold off Michael Gonzalez as they worked up from turn 5 to turn 6, approaching the NASCAR tunnel turn. And I think Gonzalez, who was out front early in this race, trying to work by, who perhaps he thinks he may be a little bit quicker than James Gibson. We'll see a little bit of draft here, but Sean, I think we're just seeing it right now. Hard to pick your spots where you want to try to make those passes.
Absolutely, but we're looking here. This battle is turning into a battle for the lead here as they've closed up a little bit on Liam Sheen as well, and James Gibson and Gonzalez. It'll be interesting to see here. Gonzalez, very smart driver, raced him a bunch of times. We're going to see if maybe he goes for the pass on Gibson, or maybe tries to catch up to Gibson and push him up towards Liam Sheen, so that way they could all close on the leader here. So this race is just getting started here, but just outside of frame is Matt Danson. So after that mistake, he's kind of been reeling these guys in. He's been just about a second faster than leader Liam Sheen as we see him going into turn number 1. So expect him to be right on these guys' tails momentarily. And as our very esteemed colleague Travis Brown always says, we might have a 4-horse pony show at the dog races here once again, as the 22 of Brandon Watkins is off again. That's the 3rd time he's been off in turn 2 right there.
Watkins has not had a good go of it, and I think he was just trying to get out of the way for these race leaders. You see Matt Danson right behind him. You see a lot of damage on the nose of that Food Country USA Chevy Silverado as you see him go wide once again. I think he's just trying to get out of the way. He's trying to be courteous, but he has had enough trouble when he's the only driver out there trying to keep it on course. So it is difficult sledding out there for Brandon Watkins so far, but we still look at this battle for second overall, second in the A class. James Gibson, Michael Gonzalez. Gonzalez not letting him slip away, but just looking for an opportunity, looking for some type of draft or something to catch up here to Gibson.
I'm looking right now at the lap times, and as it stands right now, the fastest laps and those fastest lap points are going to be going to in the A class, it's going to be Danson with a 130.210. In the B class, it's going to go to Taylor with a 132.33. And in the C class, it's going to go to Brandon Penito with a 133.181. So 2 of those 3 are the class leaders, looking at a 26 points boost to their championship runs, whereas Danson is going to be searching for those points, but that extra bonus point is certainly going to help them in the long run.
It is, as we continue to look on forward there. Liam Sheen starting to fall back into the clutches of James D. Gibson. We have a good battle going on in this A class that you see unfolding right in front of your screen. About a 4, I'll just let Sean carry that saying. I won't try to steal it from anybody, but about a 4-horse show at the front. You do have a nice little battle going on here. Dustin Ping was just able to make his way by Caleb Brees. That is for 5th overall in the truck class. Right now, Matt Taylor, Brian Sabelski, they're separated by quite a bit in the B class, but we still are having a good battle here in the Cup Series cars. Michael Gonzalez here through the tunnel turn. I feel like we've said it over and over again, Sean. He's about a car length back, and he just cannot make up any time.
We're wondering if at Texas last week, if the dirty air would be coming into play at these races, and it looks like it is. So Michael Gonzalez has just not been able to get a fender to the rear bumper of James Gibson to make the pass. But as I was touching on earlier while we were talking about this, Matt Danson has reeled these guys in just behind him, last week's winner. So he's looking to make up for that little mistake he made earlier in the race. And Liam Sheen just ahead has been able to get out ahead slightly, as we see Gibson's having a little bit of a connection issue. That might be playing a big factor into this for them not making up any ground. But turn 1 is a huge passing zone. And as JP alluded to earlier, it's going to be one of your passing zones. It's kind of a blind corner. If we can get it on board next time by of one of these guys going into turn 1, is Gibson sliding off the racetrack, and he is going to lose 2 spots. Luckily, he's able to rejoin, catch a piece of that concrete access road, and get back going. But man, Gibson just overcooked it going into turn number 3 there, and he will lose 2 spots, and back to 4th he goes.
Well, I was just about to talk about Matt Danson starting to reel in that battle for second, Josh, but you see right there, Gibson has had trouble with that rear grip since the drop of the green flag finally bites him, and now he falls back to 4th, but Danson and Gonzalez both slowly starting to reel in Liam Sheen for the race lead.
Yeah, you see them working through the tunnel turn here, going to have that draft. It's going to be able to close up the gap just a little bit, but that's going to be something that's going to close it over the course of laps, not over the course of a single lap. Got to get through those gears quick and not, okay, this is careful. Got to be very precise here. If you clip that grass just a little bit too much, iRacing's going to yell at you and tell you, hey, you cut the course. Give up a second. So as this race goes on and on, they're going to get a little bit more and more pushing that envelope, and finally one of them is going to get a 1-second penalty, and it's not a good time, Blake.
No, it's not. And again, all of those penalties determined by the iRacing software on whether they will cut the course, or if any time was gained, iRacing will force any driver to slow down and give that time back should they cut the course and gain an advantage. But you see on board Matt Danson right now, he has been pretty much the fastest driver we've seen so far tonight. He ran off a little bit earlier, starting to reel back in and try to grab control of that race lead. You can see not very easy, but using every bit of runoff, every bit of curb that is allowed in these turns, particularly in this infield section. You see Gonzalez in front of him, a little bit of a lockup as he got right up to the back of Liam Sheen there for the race lead.
And you saw that gave us a really good example of just how narrow this track is. Matt Danson was right behind Michael Gonzalez throughout that whole infield section, but you saw there's just nowhere to pass in there. So you really have to be patient and stay as close to the guy in front of you as you can, and maybe make up some time on the oval and draft up to him and pass him. But right now, Liam Sheen is doing a great job of holding these guys off in that 0-2 machine as he makes his way into turns 8 and 9 here for this little chicane. So great job by him. He's doing a great job of getting back into the gas, and especially as we kind of talked about at Texas, getting back on the oval portion of the track is so key, because you can make up a lot of time, or if you don't get back on the oval in a good manner, you can lose a whole lot as well.
Very important indeed. As Danson, your winner from last week, Liam Sheen, who brought it home second. Some of your battlers up front. James D. Gibson also finished on the podium in A class last week. Obviously, he runs in 4th. Gonzalez made a look there into turn 1. Is it going to be enough? Oh, they all 3 venture off the course. That is a classic case of monkey see, monkey do. As Liam Sheen goes off the course, he will surrender the race lead. Here comes Andy Trupiano. Now he's battling for second. Gonzalez able to get back on the track quickly, and he will gain the race lead. Guys, I think anybody who's ever raced long enough has seen exactly that one person makes a mistake and you follow them right into it.
Oh my goodness gracious, that was hilarious. I just love it. if one person misses their break point, especially that leader, everyone else just follows suit. Oh, that is classic racing and everything about it. But the best part about it, nobody hit the fence. They're all going to get going. And if anything, Michael Gonzalez is the big smiler right now. He was able to miss it just a little bit. And Andy Trupiano is going to go ahead and make it up to third place as they go here into 8 and 9.
Yeah, Trupiano's the big winner out of that. He moves up into third, right behind Liam Sheen. He's going to use the grass. Sheen is going to slide off the corner. And here goes Trupiano looking down to the inside. Right hand on the driver's side to the bottom of turn 10. We see some side draft here. And, of course, you have Matt Danson right behind them. He can build up a run and try to make a move into turn 1 as well, Sean.
I can't speak enough of what we're seeing right now. These guys are acting like it's the final lap of the race, and we are just now, not even halfway. We're a few minutes from our halfway caution, as we said before. But Andy Trupiano doing all he can right now to pass Liam Sheen for that second spot. Sheen cuts him off through turn 1. Trupiano gets right to his rear bumper, and look who's back into this battle now. James D. Gibson is back in it. So again, as I've said before, we got a 4-horse pony show at the dog races for second as they work their way through turn 3.
A little bit of contact there. Liam Sheen able to hold off that battle for second. Matt Danson looking here as they head into turn number 4. Trupiano, a bit of a lockup. They still stay off of each other. Gibson trying to reel them back in. Danson now going to look to the inside for third. This is some great stuff.
This is insanity as they enter the tunnel turn. Liam Sheen's going to get a little bit of the safer barrier as he gets too quick to the throttle. But they're going to carry the speed here, and oh my goodness, side by side all the way through the infield. That's something that just doesn't work, but man, these guys are skilled drivers, I'll tell you what.
They certainly are. Gibson behind them, perhaps going to look for 5th or for 4th rather. He ends up checking up, but Danson now on the prowl for Liam Sheen. This is what Michael Gonzalez is loving this. He's just driving right away from these guys. He's saying, please keep battling behind them. But man, this is some fantastic action we're seeing right now.
He's got all the clean air in the world right now, so he has just set sail on these guys, so he can just cruise on to the halfway portion of the race. But like we say, you guys aren't missing anything. We know there's a bunch of other drivers on the racetrack, but this is the closest battle out of everybody on the racetrack right now. So Liam Sheen still manages to hang on to second. Matt Danson is in third overall. Andy Trupiano fourth, and James Gibson will round out the top 5. So I guess we could just do a quick little update on our class leaders right now, as we see Michael Gonzalez. Of course, we talked about he's led in the A class. Matt Taylor, as we talked about, dominating right now in the B class. No one's within a country mile of him. As there you see him, there's no other cars in sight for Matt.
Yeah.
So he is setting sail for everybody. And Brandon Pinito, as we talked about, is leading in the C class in the 5 truck. He's got nobody around him either. So these guys are definitely putting on a show. And one guy that I want to kind of get a quick update on, we haven't really talked much about earlier, David Grantham in the 6 truck. He won the C class last week, started pretty much last in the C class. He had a bit of an incident on his qualifying lap. He is driven up to second in C class, so he is going to make a run at it before this thing is done. But right now, all the action is in A class, and Michael Gonzalez is telling these guys see you later, as Liam Sheen is barely hanging on to second right now.
That is the case. Matt Taylor right now a very comfortable lead, about 16 seconds right now over Gary Weaver for the lead in B class, but also running 6th overall. And then you go to Brandon Penito that we were just talking about, 7th overall, leading the Truck Series class. He's the best out of a couple Xfinity Series cars. So once again, Penito overachieving in a vehicle that we weren't really sure how it would go. Obviously less horsepower than the NASCAR Xfinity Series car, but seems to be a little bit quicker, particularly through a lot of these slow corners, and this would be a track where that would certainly come into play. Probably get a little more draft in that truck as well, depending on who you're behind, but a nice job there for Pinito, who sports about a 2-second lead right now over Grantham. Grantham has been running him down for the C-class lead, but that is the 2 classes that aren't being as contested as heavily right now as this battle for second in A class. Matt Danson now within just mere inches of Liam Sheen as they work back up onto the oval, approaching turn 6. Danson is there, but as we've seen, again, it is hard to set up a pass right here, Josh.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I was going to make a couple of points regarding the point situation. Michael Gonzalez last week only scored 2 points. He is right now looking to try and get 25 points and get a little bit of that gap made back up on Danson. But right now, I don't know if it's going to be enough. That's a huge points deficit, and Danson's really got to have a bad week ahead of him, or a bad couple of weeks ahead of him in order to make that time back up that he lost with last week. The reason why he got 2 points, he forgot we were running the Roval. He decided on the backstretch of Texas, we were continuing to the oval, and the barriers made sure that was brought to a quick end. And then the other point I wanted to make was David Grantham, the second place driver in C class, as Sean alluded to earlier, said he was the one who wanted to go all the way to the back of the end of the field. He was already in the 23rd gridded position. He said, you know what, if I'm going to be at the back of the field, why don't you just put me at the back of the field and I'll drive my way back up through to the front. And as you can see, he has made a lot of progress towards that goal.
He really has. And before we approach that halfway mark, again, 30 minutes in, we will throw a halfway caution. We'll close pit road 27 minutes into this race. Before we approach that, Justin, you got anything for pit road for us?
Now, when it comes to the strategy, guys, I talked with a bunch of the drivers and asked about if we would see some drivers think about pitting before that halfway caution. The majority said they were not considering it, but there is one who may be in that possibility. Keep an eye on. The 07 machine of Weaver mentioned he thought about doing it last time when Matt Taylor did that strategy call for his specific window. So there is a chance we see at least one driver consider rolling the dice here. It all depends on if multiple drivers decide to come on down. That's going to be the major key. Because when I talked to Taylor and asked him that same question, he mentioned to me he didn't want to make that same mistake again.
As the case is, we have just gotten word from the tower, 3-minute warning until pit road closes. That will come in 3 minutes, so about 24 minutes into this race. Again, this is a timed race, no lap count. We will race for an hour, and we will continue to roll on through as now a couple of Cup Series cars beginning to approach the back of the Truck Series field and beginning to lap some cars. You look at Andy Trupiano, James Gibson. They're battling for 4th and 5th overall at the moment. David Grantham, though, as far as in-class battles go, starting to make up a little bit of ground on Brandon Penito for that lead in the Truck Series class. That gap was about 3 or 4 seconds when we last looked at this battle. It's now down to about 2 seconds. So Grantham started to make some headway here heading towards this halfway break.
I think we might have to look into class graduations here in this series if we're going to be doing that. Grantham, as we mentioned, he was so dominant last week at Texas, and he has proven to be making quick work of pretty much everybody ahead of him. Where he started, he has driven, like we said, all the way up to within about 1.2 seconds of C-Class leader Brandon Pinito. So can't speak enough about the race David's put together. That truck looks spotless, and coming into the halfway break, he's looking very good to make it 2 in a row so far on the young season. But as we saw last week, guys, especially with this halfway break, things can get really mixed up and crazy on this restart, and I would expect nothing different here as we are just about ready to get that halfway break underway.
We are. Good battle going on here, though, for 4th. Liam Sheen, James Gibson heading off into turn 1. Gibson's been filing some connection issues, and they both go wide, just as we saw earlier when the 3 race leaders all followed each other off. That's a second time, especially in this A-Class, where we have seen 2 drivers make the same mistake and venture off course into turn 1. Gibson, again, was having some internet issues throughout that lap, so Sheen maybe not knowing where he was, but a nice job there for Sheen to hang on, and still going to maintain that 4th position right now over Gibson.
What a race so far. Can we just take a breather and just appreciate what we've gotten in the last 25 and a half minutes? It's been nonstop action, and this battle for the A-Class group here has been incredible. Oh my goodness, you would think these kind of races, it'd be single file, it'd be boring, but it just, every moment, mistake away. It's a mistake away from being able to make that position up. And so far, this race has been super duper exciting. And as soon as we get to this halfway break, it's just going to refile up, drivers, and it's going to be a blast to watch them fire off for a second time.
It will, and again, we mentioned, as you see, Justin Melillo, he's actually going to come onto pit road. We mentioned the struggles that Melillo has had. He's having a good time, but says it is like Tokyo drifting out there. There is just no rear grip anywhere for Melillo right now. We've seen him slide a couple of times into turn number 1, but Justin, what do you got as the 53 approaches pit road?
Melillo now stopping in his box, and indeed, he's been dealing with those grip issues for his respective side of things. Currently 1 lap down on the racetrack already, but he's got a smile on his face with how he's done so far with some of the drifting through the grass and around the circuit. He's off and away with a quick pit stop. He's completed service.
He has, and he really has nothing to lose. They just closed pit road, so he just beats the end of pit road being closed before the halfway caution. And like you said, he's already a lap down, has really nothing to lose by coming down pit road and making sure he gets those 4 fresh tires to cycle back to the lead lap when we get things going underway. When we talk about this battle, though, in the A class, Andy Trupiano, perhaps through no fault of his own, or perhaps because he hasn't had very many faults, I wouldn't say he's had some of the same pace that we've seen out of some of the cars ahead of him, but Sean, if you don't make mistakes, you put yourself in a good spot, and right now Trupiano doing just that, riding P3 right now in a hotly contested Cup Series class right now.
I mean, that's half the battle, really, as we've seen in these races, that as if you could keep your car clean, for the most part, you still have a shot at it no matter where you are. So he's doing a great job of keeping his nose clean. And I've had the privilege of watching and commentating for Andy during his time in the Windshield Deep Racing League, headed by Landon Huffman, all the guys at Windshield Deep. He is a 3-time consecutive champion in that series, so no one's had anything for him. And there's some good drivers in that series as well. But those mostly run on the 87 cars on short tracks, and he's showing just how versatile he is on the road courses. As we see, Liam Sheen is just, as Justin Melillo mentioned, just Tokyo drifting out there. But the tires starting to fall off on these things, and as I wanted to allude to JP, great job he's done on pit road for us so far. He's given us all the drivers' feedback, and everyone's laughing on the radio right now as these things are losing grip. They might be getting harder to drive, but the fun factor is getting up there for these guys. These guys are having a blast making their way around Pocono.
They really are, and 2 drivers having fun right now. Brandon Pinito, David Grantham, nearly nose to tail as they battle just before our halfway break, trying to break through and grab that lead. Now, Grantham, remember, started all the way at the back of the grid. He was one of those drivers that Josh was talking about early on, that he wanted that challenge to try to come from the back of the field and work his way to the front. And right before we hit this break, here he is, about a truck length back from Pinito, looking for the race lead.
We're going to see the competition caution come out here very shortly, as race control is going to drop it right there. As you can see it, the competition caution is going to come out, and Michael Gonzalez is going to catch the pace car here into turn number 1.
Man, it's like you're in tune with race control or something, John. It's very spot on.
That was very wild. I feel like I'm inside the race control's head.
Very coincidence. Big coincidence.
I was about to say that was so perfectly timed, and you're like, oh, guys, we might get a caution, and 2 seconds later just speaks it into existence. So
telepathy.
Josh Mendoza, race control Jesus, bringing out the caution flag right here. It's a nice hot summer day here in the Pocono Mountains, and right now, guys, we look at our race leader, Michael Gonzalez. Perhaps some mistakes being made throughout the field, but right now, that 72 car, Sean, he looks awfully sporty.
Yeah, he does. You know, he's looked very good, had the fortunate luck, if you will, to kind of be able to avoid that calamity where all 3 of the leaders went off into turn number 1. So he was able to come through that with the lead. But the guy behind him is no slouch either. Matt Danson, we saw just how dominant he was at Texas last week. And Gonzalez knows in the back of his mind, Danson might be the guy to beat here. We saw he had the most pace on the long runs, especially at Texas. And with a lot cooler track, you would think it'd be the same deal today. But Gantu's had a lot of success up front, so we'll see how much he uses that clean air to his benefit. But right now, I'm sure he's got that 30 car, Matt Danson, in his mind, and how he's going to hold him off, we'll wait and see.
Well, and also, Josh, I'll flip it over to you because we see this time and time again, and we saw it at Texas last week, and I think it's something that a lot of drivers do. You start a race, you're patient, you don't want damage early on, you're going to be pretty easy getting into turn one, and we saw that. We saw a lot of give and take into turn one as we went off as a pack in there, but you get a couple laps under your belt, you're pretty confident in where you might be running, you get a couple laps on the track. I don't know if you see that same patience heading off into turn one and through the infield section like we saw last time, and as we've seen a couple of times tonight, you go side by side and battle too hard in the infield, that could bite you pretty hard.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of these times where these drivers, they get a little bit more confidence, they get a little bit more impatient, because you notice the clock, it's counting down even under the caution flag right over there. You can see it. It's still on and it's still counting. So we're not going to be going back green with 30 minutes remaining. We're probably going to go back green with 25, 23 minutes remaining. That means it's go time. You got to get out there. You got to make your moves. There's no better time than in the moment to make those moves. But does that mean you're going to rub somebody off the track? Is it what's it going to look like for you as we see the field coming down pit road right now?
The field is going to head down pit road, and Justin Prince, what are you hearing down there as a couple of cars start to work their way into their stalls? We even see a couple of cars staying out.
A few of those drivers are some of the wave around competitors, but when it comes to Michael Gonzalez, he mentioned on the radio, Bono, my tires are gone. That's how slippy and slidey those tires are for some of these competitors. Very loose on the radio. Many of these competitors, as they are up on the jacks, already trying to get their left side tires on their cars at the moment. As well, the right side jacks coming in for these respective tires to try and complete their service. Already off and away. A good pit stop for Gonzalez. Danson second on the race off the lane.
Oh, man. I don't know about that. It looked like Danson might have beaten him out there. That was very close.
Wow. That first pit stall. That's qualifying importance right there. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, that I was like you, Justin. I thought that Michael Gonzalez had won that race off of pit road, but the benefits of being that lead pit stall, you basically just get right out of your stall and you're already off of pit lane. And Danson takes advantage of that and will resume what would be the race lead off of pit road. Now, we do have a couple of vehicles that did stay out. We have two trucks, Clint Roberts and DG Swiss, as well as Justin Melillo, who stayed out. I believe most of those drivers will be taking the wave around the pace car here, so it will be Matt Danson that will cycle through to the race lead. But also we're stacked up position-wise now for a pretty good battle in the B class. Matt Taylor, Gary Weaver, Brian Sabelski, Joseph Selby, they'll all, at least by my timing in scoring, will for the most part be pretty close, pretty nose to tail by the time this thing cycles out.
Now, guys, if I could just point something out really quick here, going back to that race off of pit road, according to the timing here that we have, Michael Gonzalez's pit stop was a 14.8 or total time in the box. Matt Danson, a 14.7. So that much on the pit lane got Matt Danson out ahead of Michael Gonzalez. That may be a little bit of time, but man, that could prove to be the difference in this race.
Really could. That's why they call it the money stop. And as Josh said earlier, that time continuing to tick away as we continue to pace under caution. So we'll approach what looks like just under 25 minutes left in this race. We'll have one more pace lap around here, which it tends to take a little bit of time. So I imagine, Josh, it'll be, probably around 20 minutes or so left in this race by the time we get the green flag, something like that?
I would say around that point. Maybe around 21, maybe 20 minutes. Going around pacing around is about 2 minutes, 10 seconds a lap here. So we have at least one more lap after this. So that would be, roughly around that point. I believe we're going to see DG Swiss come down pit road here. I don't know if they're going to wave the drivers around here or what the plan is here with race control with these two drivers in the front. They are a lap down, so we'll see what happens. But next week, we're going to be going to Indianapolis, so be sure to tune in next week at 7 p.m. around the same time. Indianapolis Motor Speedway is going to be where we're going to be at for next week's eRacr Roval Racing Series.
And again, that is something I think, Sean, a lot of these drivers will be a lot more familiar with. Just a more well-known configuration. It's been run in a lot of different series over the course of time. And, of course, coming up, NASCAR Cup Series will, and all the NASCAR series rolling through Indy, will be running at the Indianapolis Road Course. So that will be, I think, something that it will, as far as this series goes, is pretty familiar territory for all these drivers.
Only in the eRacr Roval Racing Series will you get to have a preview of all 3 races over a NASCAR weekend in real life in one race. So be sure to kind of be there for that. That's going to be an adventure. But yeah, as you said, Blake, that track should be a little more familiar to these guys. And I guess I could speak for us. I mean, we've been on iRacing for a while. I don't think we've ever done a race at this track and at Texas last week, that configuration too. So this series throwing a very nice curveball at these guys. It's been fun to watch these guys adapt to these racetracks and get used to them just for this series. And I gotta say, so far these guys have taken quite a liking to get used to these tracks. Learning new tracks is fun for these guys, and they're doing a great job applying these skills. But Indy should be a little more familiar, and we'll see who's got that track mastered just as well next week. So that should be fun to watch as well.
Another thing we're hearing, Justin, about Matt Danson and restarting. What are you hearing from the 30 camp?
Well, quite simply, he said on the radio he doesn't know where to brake on the restart with the timing of that. Right now, there is a conversation on the radio going on where they want to enter the corner in particular to be able to properly make their way cleanly into the infield section. So the main discussion point is where they want to brake. Right now, the timing looks like they may go off of Danson based on what they are doing at the front of the field.
Oh, man, that's going to be an adventure and a half, I think.
Yeah, it will. And, that's a great point that I think not only is the case in turn 1, it's this entire course. There's no wall markers. There's no braking zones. I mean, looking right here into turn 7, a long straightaway right into turn 7, and you don't have anything on the wall to help you. They have braking markers for the oval on this racetrack, and they don't have braking markers set up, at least for this road course or the way it's scanned in iRacing. This is the legacy version of Pocono that was scanned back in 2008, but there's no markers anywhere. You're having to go off of instinct, off of maybe just a sign or a tree. We are at Pocono, so you could brake at a certain tree, but these drivers are working with very little information, and we'll see how that works. We'll see where Matt Danson decides to brake and where the field comes along with them. You look back in the field, we have mixed everything up here. The trucks, the Xfinity cars are all stacked up, mixed up together for this restart, unlike what we saw at the beginning of the race. So we'll approach the restart, just over 20 minutes left to go, and Matt Danson not going to waste any time here. He gets a great jump, a couple of car lengths ahead already over Michael Gonzalez. As we'll see what happens when they head into turn 1.
Oh, Gibson throws it in kind of hard into the corner. He's going to be all over the back. They're still side by side for second. Gonzalez is through. Sheen is through to third. Side by side for fourth with Trupiano and Gibson. Trupiano's off. Going into turn number 3. He's able to corral it. He might maintain the spot as they make their way through turn 3.
An amazing job there by Trupiano to maintain it. Gibson going side by side. They'll make the right-hander into 3, heading towards turn 4. They're still side by side. Melillo is off in the back. He'll work his way back onto the track.
Oh, Justin.
And Trupiano right now takes it, and he locks up a little bit.
Oh!
But turn 4, he's got it.
Brandon Pinito spins it out of the backstretch. He's going to lose the lead from C-Class. We're going to get it back on there as Dustin Ping passes him on the right-hand side.
The 16 gets punted behind, and Grantham is around. Multiple cars off going onto the oval. Oh my goodness, Grantham just absolutely got into the back of Ben McDonald, I should say, in the 16 in B class. So that is going to extend the lead of the 5 truck of Pinito, and that just has big implications for this class. 2 of the fastest drivers involved in an incident, and essentially Grantham's got to come from the back again.
And that had a lot of layers to it. You had Arthur Reimer, David Grantham. You talked about your class leader in the trucks and Penito having an issue.
Oh.
Liam Sheen just spun out of turn number 10. But did he get it collected? I'm sorry.
He did.
Clint Roberts went around as well, heading into turn 7 that lap. There's just chaos everywhere. We can't even keep up with it all.
Now we keep saying, Josh, like the last race, that midway caution just shook everything up, and these guys are trying to get all they can in these cars, but multiple crashes going on in that last lap, and that has big implications on this race, so that'll shake everything up big time.
It has huge implications. And you know what else is probably going to happen in these next 1 or 2 laps? Some new fastest laps are going to get set. That's going to move that point to another driver, or if it is that driver, they're going to get that point back. So let's see right here if Matt Danson or Gonzalez can go ahead and set the fastest lap here.
Caleb Brees also took an excursion off the racetrack in turn 1. He gets it collected back as there is a lot of cars stacked up around 11th overall behind Joseph Selby. And oh man, Philip Bupp, a huge wiggle.
Bupp
getting off of turn 5 onto turn 6. Bupp struggling right there. He's able to collect it back, loses a spot there to Dustin Ping in a truck, so he'll have a couple of trucks in front of him. Anyway, again, there's just so much going on. It's hard to keep up with everything. It's cycled around to have Jeremy Barreau as your truck series leader. And, of course, Matt Taylor has...
Liam Sheen is getting spun off turn 10. He gets loose right in front of James Gibson. He's going to corral it somehow. He's not going to hit anything. But that was from third right there. So he loses out in the podium spot. He's getting passed by everybody now.
Gibson immediately came over the radio and asked, did I get into you? Did I get into you? And Liam said, nope, I just got loose off of corner.
Gibson's off.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Gibson, the 82, is going off in turn 3. He's going to save it, but here comes the leader of the B class, Matt Taylor. That's the overall move for 4th. So what a job by Taylor. He's in the top 5 in the B class.
That is absolutely incredible. And I have some news coming in. Michael Gonzalez has just stolen fastest lap from Matt Danson. Now the extra point goes to Gonzalez. If you're Danson, it's basically now. You have to go out there, get that bonus point if you want to hold off Gonzalez from getting that extra point.
I was about to say, with the way the tire fall off works, you really have about those first 2 or 3 laps of a run to be able to set that fastest lap. Otherwise, it's just not possible. Also, Gonzalez, he has a little bit of a tow here from Danson. He gets in really well there through turn 7 to 9 and is able to keep up there with Danson, but that tow probably helps him a little bit, Josh, maybe get that fastest lap a little bit easier.
Yeah, I mean, if Matt Danson, if he gets a good corner here, he'll carry him, but he's still giving that tow to Gonzalez, something that is extraordinarily important with these cars. If he can make it work, we'll see right here. Nope, that lap time is not going to be good enough. That still is going to stay with Gonzalez.
And again, that time to set that lap is almost gone. Gibson able to go by Taylor into turn 1 using all that horsepower that his NASCAR Cup Series machine uses up. Taylor's still in second. They've separated now for the battle for the B class. Taylor has pretty much had control of that throughout the entire race. But right now, how about Hunter Reeve? We haven't really mentioned his name a whole lot today, but he is starting to slowly work his way up. He's now second in that Truck Series class and starting to run down that C-class leader at the moment.
Jeremy Barreau is kind of stuck behind traffic now. He's got the 07 of Gary Weaver just ahead of him in B class. So, and as you mentioned, Blake, Hunter Reeve, he's looked very clean. That truck doesn't really have a scratch on it. That 044 Operation Motorsport machine looking very sporty. His line has been very clean, especially coming back onto the racing surface here on the oval. And I got to say, we could have another exciting finish on our hands as the C-Class gets tighter, but also this battle for the A-Class.
Oh, trouble. Brian Sabelski off of turn 5 had some contact from Brandon Pinito. So Sabelski, your winner from last year, or last week, rather, Texas. We haven't been doing this long. We might with the quality of racing we'll be seeing, but unfortunate there for Sabelski. He gets punted off of turn 5. And he's going to collect it up. He actually doesn't really lose a whole lot of ground. I think he may have only lost 1 spot to Joseph Selby in that exchange, but the driver's talking it over on the radio right now, and they're obviously not too pleased about it. You can't imagine that they would be.
I'm looking right here at the timing and scoring, and as it stands, Matt Taylor in the B class is going to get that bonus point for fastest lap, and Brandon Pinetto in the C class is going to keep that fastest lap. So at this time, I doubt we're going to see any more fastest laps. If we do, it's going to be probably an alien lap, if anything, if you're able to get the fastest lap on these old of tires. So yeah, I don't know. How do you feel? Do you just kind of keep it together? Do you hope for maybe you're in the A class, you're already in the back, come down for pit road and try and get an additional point? Those are your options if you want to try and get that bonus point for fastest lap.
Yeah, I guess we see it in Formula One all the time. You 2 or 3 laps to go just to try to get that. Of course, you need enough of an advantage for that to work. And of course, the pit road here at Pocono is so long, and you're not talking about Formula One, 2 seconds or something like that for a pit stop. You're talking about 13 seconds to change all 4 tires. So you would need a pretty significant advantage, or to be in a situation like a Liam Sheen, like a James Gibson, where you really have nothing to lose, to try to go after that and get that fastest lap. But right now, Matt Danson holding serve on the race lead. Gonzalez has kept the pace up with him, Sean, though. The last couple of laps, it's been pretty much neck and neck for that race lead. Gonzalez has not let Danson get away.
Definitely not. I mean, I was about to say Gonzalez might be in the catbird seat, if you will, because we saw just how much of a factor the draft plays on this race, and Gonzalez is right there, ready to kind of pounce, if you will, if Danson is able to make a mistake. But he's holding right with them, so he's stride for stride with them right now as they make their way through the infield section. Just outside behind him, though, Andy Trupiano, he's running laps very similar to these guys just ahead of him. So if he can catch a toe of the 72 car, look for that 7 machine at Trupiano to maybe have a say in this before we're all done here.
I tell you what, Trupiano has done a tremendous job. We haven't probably talked about him as much as his speed has been there, but again, lack of mistakes has helped him.
Oh, Sheen!
Oh no!
Sheen! Oh man, he is off out of turn number 3. If we can get a replay for that, it looks like he kind of wheel hopped and that sent him around, and he got
airtime.
He did. He kind of ramped off at the concrete section in the infield.
We'll see right there as soon as we can. We're working on getting you guys a replay. So once we have that, we'll show you it. As you can see right here, he goes into the backstretch. He misses that braking point, wheel hopping, whatever happened. He slides off, hits that access, and then goes into the fence. Oh, man.
Looks like got stuck in the fence, too. He immediately towed right after that.
He did, yeah. And again, he looked in front. Gary Weaver, I wouldn't say Weaver made a mistake, but Weaver was just a little bit high right there through turn 4. And how many times have we talked about it, guys? You see someone in front of you run a little wide or make a little bit of a mistake, and you follow right into it. And tough to see for Liam Sheen, who led a good portion of this race, experience that issue. But that is how much on edge these drivers are.
Matt Taylor almost lost it through the infield. Got it collected together. He's up to 4th overall, but he's going to have James Gibson behind him, who's going to, I hate to say it, you're going to get a little pressure if you have a higher class car trailing you.
Yeah, I don't think it, but this isn't the first time we've seen this. Gibson has had to pass Taylor. I think this is probably the 2nd or 3rd time that Gibson's going to have to do it. So I don't think Taylor has an issue with it, but Gibson just keeps having problems to where he needs to try to chase him back down. So we'll see if he can do that. And as we're saying that, still battle brewing for the race lead. Gonzalez faster than Matt Danson that last lap by about 1/10 of a second. He has not let Matt Danson out of his sights.
Well, and I was saying before, Blake, these guys are battling, but the guy who was faster than both of them was Andy Trupiano right behind him. So I keep saying it ad nauseum, keep an eye on him. He might have a say in this thing before this is done. But right now, Gonzalez using that draft from Matt Danson to his advantage into turn number 1. Both of these guys right on the edge as Gonzalez is going to close right to the back of Danson. Danson might be saving, who knows, but right now, if he wants to get a little bit of a gap between he and Gonzalez, he's got to go right now, as there you see a shot right from the rear bumper of Matt Danson. That Casey Kerwin, twitch.tv/Casey Kerwin Toyota Camry, all over the rear bumper of Danson.
There's a lot of action going on all over the track. Justin Prince, what are you hearing?
Have an update when it regards to Sheen. Got chance to catch up with him and mention when it comes to that situation, apparently had overheated his tires. That's what happened in that situation in his regard that caused him to go off the racetrack. But keep in mind as well, when it comes to that B-class battle, that one of the drivers watching the wings is Gary Weaver. If there's a mistake in that respective group, Weaver mentioned it was a 7 out of 10 performance the last time out at Texas Motor Speedway after hitting the outside wall of the oval. That got him 50 seconds of aero damage in that race. He mentioned today his goal was to hope for the top 3. He's in that goal range with a chance to try and get a good finish here.
Thank you very much, Justin. And again, that's something that, when you talk about goals and racing, you obviously can't go out. You can't win every single race that you ever run in, but it's good to see drivers kind of setting those goals for themselves, whether they can hit them, whether they can overachieve, and perhaps be happy. We'll see about that as Gonzalez into the back. They make contact into turn 1. Gonzalez almost went wide. Danson able to hold it off. He's got a little bit of rear damage after that little scrum right there, but he holds the race lead.
Oh my goodness, that could have been a disaster for that, but great job by both of those guys. And Gonzalez was so close to getting those left side tires on the grass, and we know if you get any part of your tires on the grass, that could be it for you. On the asphalt, you're going straight into the grass part of the circuit. But great job by both of these guys, and the battle is far from over. Ganzu is still well in the toe of Matt Danson, so give him a lap to get his tires together, but he is definitely going to make another run at this lead. This is far from over.
This has been an incredible battle so far. I can't help but feeling like Matt was sitting there looking in his mirror. He knew he was coming. He came over the radio and said, "Oh frick, I missed it," as he was coming towards the back of Matt Danson, and Danson's just sitting there hoping that he doesn't send him off into the corner a little harder. Fortunately, they were both able to keep it together and rolling.
Well, you see Gonzalez there off of turn 9, really struggling there for that rear grip. So we'll see over these next couple of laps, I believe. Gonzalez now just outside of where he can get that draft off of Matt Danson. He's just probably right at a second. You can see it right there on your screen, basically at a second distance from Matt Danson. So not able to get that draft. We'll see if that makes a difference or if he can start to reel Danson back in. There will be lap traffic at a certain point. Stacy Hunter, Clint Roberts, a couple of trucks that will inevitably be caught because of the difference in pace here. Not a whole lot of time to get it done, guys. There's so much going on. I didn't realize. I just looked up. I just realized there's 6.5 minutes left in this thing.
Yeah, we're coming down to it, so it's going to be go time here for these guys. 5 minutes, kind of like the 2-minute warning in a football game, or the last 2 minutes of a basketball game. That is go time for these guys, and especially for the class leaders. So Matt Danson currently leading the A class. Matt Taylor doesn't really have anything to worry about for now. Gary Weaver's starting to chase him down, as JP mentioned, but he's got a big lead. Jeremy Bro is your overall leader in C class. So these guys all trying to hang on and get their first wins of the season, except, of course, for Matt Danson. Of course, won last week at Texas, but Michael Gonzalez trying to regroup and get himself back to the rear bumper. But as you mentioned, Blake, coming down to 5 minutes, time's quickly running out.
It is, and a couple of drivers worth noting that obviously have gone behind the wall and are not on the racetrack right now. Ben McDonald, obviously Liam Sheen took that tow. He is left and gone to the garage. Justin Malillo in the Xfinity Series class, Thomas Finsler, Brandon Watkins in the Truck Series class, and Joshua Chin had an early exit to this one in the Cup Series class. So about 5 or 6 drivers that have called it a day here at Pocono as we work into the waning minutes of this race. Matt Danson looking to go back-to-back in Cup Series class action, but Michael Gonzalez still keeping pace with him, but he's got a lot of ground to make up and not a whole lot of time to do it. You're looking at probably 3 or 4 laps at the most to be able to try and chase down that 30 car.
I'm seeing right now he ran about 0.6 of a second slower. That's Gonzalez ran 0.6 of a second slower on that last lap, but he's still keeping within striking distance, about 1.5, maybe 2 seconds back right now from Matt Danson as they work their way through the tunnel turn. And he just gets smaller and smaller as Danson has a little bit of a wiggle off of the tunnel turn exit. And I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. It's unless Danson has a mistake, I think it may just be getting those tires cooled down and regrouping for one last run. You got 4 minutes, 15 seconds to make it happen.
And guys, we actually have something brewing right now in C class. I'm looking at Hunter Reeve in the 044. He's got the 5 of Brandon Pinito all over the rear of that truck. This is the battle for second in C class. So good job by Pinito to kind of regroup after his incident earlier. As we look back from the 044 of Hunter Reeve, running a bit of a different line through the corner. You see he's working more the middle of the racetrack, looking to get a good run off, and Pinito running the bottom there. So this is one of the closer races on track right now. So this could be heating up before the end of this thing as well.
It certainly could. Hunter Reeve, you see, go a little bit wide there, off track into 9, clips a little bit of the grass, but has a pretty decent exit. But this is where you're going to see Pinito is going to get a little bit of a draft here towards turn 1. And man, Reeve is just drifting that truck in front of him. He is sideways, was washing up the racetrack. Pinito, we know the pace that he had. He got knocked off a little bit earlier, a little bit off track. So I think Pinito, he may have his sights set here on trying to get second as they head off into turn 1. Pinito hard on the brakes. He's charging in hard, looking to the inside.
Man, oh man.
Sideways.
I said passing in the infield is not for the faint of heart, but it's time to go. That's gonna make it easy for him. That's second place going to the 5 truck there. Wow, what a move.
If you think catching a car alone can't help you pass somebody, look at that right there. Pinito applying the pressure. Reeve makes the mistake and slot Brandon up into second in C class. Again, they're about 5 seconds back of Jeremy Bro for the class lead, but again, there just may not be enough time for them to try and make that up. Matt Taylor still holding a pretty comfortable lead in second, and Matt Danson the last couple of laps has really opened up that gap for the top spot. That last time by, Gonzalez 6/10 slower than Matt Danson that last lap. So Danson has done a tremendous job saving those tires, as Gonzalez, man, is he sideways getting into turn 1 that last time.
The look is all over the rear. It's Andy Trupiano here, guys.
Yeah.
Right as we were talking about, he was kind of creeping into the picture. Now he's all over the back of Gonzalez for second here, Josh. And Andy's done a great job.
Brandon Pinito has spun out of turn 9, and just as he had that second spot, he has lost third as well. So Grantham goes on by. Now Grantham is in third in the trucks. It is Reeve in second, and Pinito slotted back to 4th as we're seeing another terrific battle for second in the Cup Series cars unfold.
Wow, look at this. So tunnel turn, getting through the gears, keeping the car together over that bump, going to be extremely important. As I alluded to in the video, you don't want to wheel hop into this corner or cut the course. So as they close in, you'll see him get
Throws it in there.
Jeez Louise, I don't think you could have gone any deeper with that turn without hitting the back of Michael Gonzalez. That's incredible. I'm shocked he did not wheel hop into that corner, but that right there might show just how much more tire Trupiano has under his car still.
That is some incredible stuff right there. I think, yeah, Michael Gonzalez, I think he may have run those tires off, and he is just, Sean, he's hanging on for dear life right now.
Yeah, you could say that again. He is just trying his best to kind of hang on to that podium spot in A-Class, but what a job by Trupiano. He's kept his cool this whole last part of the run, and he's been able to apply the pressure to Gonzalez, and I think right now the key for Trupiano is trying to force him into a mistake, and I think that's what he's trying to do.
By the way, guys, it is go time. As we pass the flag stand last time by, I saw Barney the flagman waving the white flag. So this is the last lap of the race. We're going to complete the race next time by.
Joseph Selby ran off the track in the Xfinity car, and that is the case. This is the white flag, so we will see it through to the end right here. Danson in control, but Gonzalez trying to hold off a last-second charge from Andy Trupiano for second. Trupiano going to get a lot of tow right here. Gonzalez sideways. They're both sideways through the tunnel turn. It's both cars really stepping it out. Trupiano has one last chance. How does he get in and off in turn 9?
Danson. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, Clint Roberts in the 87 goes off right in front of Danson. He does the smart thing and keeps it away from them. Good job by Clint not to affect that race for the lead at all.
Well, he doesn't affect the race for the lead, and Trupiano not able to build up enough of a run on Michael Gonzalez here through turn 10. But off of turn 10, Matt Danson going to be able to go back to back. He holds off a charge from Michael Gonzalez, and he will win in the Cup Series class in the eRacr Roval Racing Series. He takes round 1. He takes round 2. Gonzalez able to hold serve for second. Matt Taylor right now coming off of turn 10 in B class, and Matt Taylor went unchallenged all day. He will end up winning in B class. A dominating performance for Matt Taylor in that Xfinity car nets him a win in B class. And Jeremy Bro, a topsy-turvy effort, a lot going on in C class, but he's able to hang on. He's able to take advantage of the mistakes from Reeve, Grantham, and Penito. And Jeremy Bro, your third winner tonight. He wins in the Truck Series class.
Can't say enough for these guys, man. Great effort on everybody's part. Complete opposite for what we kind of saw last week in these classes. We saw a last lap pass for the B class victory last week. Lots of close quarters racing at the end. And this week, guys, it kind of a dominating victories in the B and C class. But one thing was the constant here. Matt Danson, 2 in a row so far to start the season. Great performances both weeks by everyone on that 30 car.
It really has been, and Danson has shown the pace and shown the long-run pace to do that as well in both of these races, and held off a hard charge in Michael Gonzalez. Liam Sheen led for a good portion. I know we were looking at the race lead for a lot of this race, but there was just so much good battling in this Cup Series class for this track, and with how difficult these cars are to drive. And a nice job there for Matt Danson. Of course, like last week, we'll try to catch up to all of our class winners. You see Matt Taylor right there. He wins the B class this week. And a nice job that he did. He really didn't have a challenge. Finished second, gave it up on the last lap at Texas, and is able to come back, rebound, and in dominating fashion win the Xfinity Series class. So a nice rebound effort there for Taylor to get it done this week. And how about Jeremy Bro as well? A lot of action going on in that C class. A lot of your leaders getting spun, making mistakes, and Jeremy Bro was right there to capitalize. So a nice job that he does to win it. And there you see 3 winners all parked here at the start-finish line at Pocono.
Absolutely love to see that. So those guys going to get their pictures here. The press going to take them, and there they go. They're going to start burning them down. We'll get an interview with these guys in just a moment. They're busy celebrating their wins on the track, but Matt Danson, this isn't new for him. He's been here before. He's going to just sit there. There we go. He starts to casually do his donuts at the start-finish line. But great race all around by everybody. We saw some great moments. We saw some intense battles, but at the end, these 3 guys right here proved to be the class of their classes, and well-deserved wins by all 3 of these guys.
Absolutely. Matt Danson, you see right there, he's staying put at the start-finish line. Jeremy Bro heading off towards turn 1 to do his, and Matt Taylor just kind of parking it there at the start-finish line. One of the unique things about this series, you see a triple burnout. It's a quite spectacular sight as we take a look at the results here tonight. 25 cars came to do battle here at Pocono Raceway. Matt Danson is the best of them all. He wins overall. Michael Gonzalez in second. Andy Trupiano, a valiant effort, not quite able to get past that 72 car that was struggling late in the run. He finishes in third. Matt Taylor, your winner in B class, is fourth overall. James Gibson, fourth in class and fifth overall in this race. Gary Weaver, a valiant effort. He was trying to chase down Matt Taylor, just couldn't quite do it, but a nice quiet effort there from Gary Weaver. Finishes in second in class. Jeremy Bro, seventh overall. First in the Truck Series class. Hunter Reeve in eighth. David Grantham, third in class overall in ninth. And Brian Sabelski, last week's winner in the B class, rounds out the top 10. He finishes third in the Xfinity cars.
Going on down to 11 through 20 overall. Brandon Pinito comes in 11th overall, fourth in class. Joseph Selby right behind in 12th. He will finish fourth overall in his class as well. Philip Bupp, we saw earlier, had that little bit of issue on the track. He will finish fifth overall in his class, 13th overall in the race. Dustin Ping will come home 14th. Arthur Reimer will come home in 15th. Caleb Brees 16th, the final car on the lead lap, 6th in his class. Then we go down to our first car, one lap down, Gigi Swiss in 17th. Clint Roberts 18th. Stacy Hunter 19th. Ben McDonald will round out the front 20.
Moving on through 21st through 25th are going to be our finishers who are, or people who did not finish the race. That's going to include Liam Sheen from the Cup Series, as well as Justin Malillo in the B-Class Xfinity Series, Thomas Fensler, and Joshua Chin, also from the Cup Series. And Brandon Watkins going to round out the caboose of this field, 29 laps down in 25th.
Hawkins finishes up in last, but we're going to catch up once again. He won last week. He wins again this week. Matt Danson, about running this race, because, man, this looked, of all the tracks that I think we're going to run in this series, this might be the most difficult one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I certainly made it more difficult for myself as well at times. But, yeah, turn one is such a doozy because you don't really see the apex until you're, very deep. And, if you've missed your braking, or, as I did on lap 2 or 3, whatever it was, I was like, okay, let's just be careful here. Let's just try and pace ourselves, and basically just completely underdrove. I think I just didn't brake enough and just allowed myself to drive off the track like a dummy. So, yeah, it's easy to lose concentration. It's easy to make a small mistake and have that turn into a big one. We were lucky to keep it off the fence and fight another day.
Absolutely. Well, you now make it 2 in a row. I guess you're just going to try to keep on rolling through these things. 2 wins now to start off the year. You got a good points advantage. How does that kind of feel, having that target on your back, but also kind of being on top of the mountain right now?
Yeah, it's awesome. Obviously, love representing Logitech G Altus in a positive way. Getting 2 wins on the trot is a good way to start. Obviously Liam, I think, had some trouble there and didn't have a great result, so that'll help us with the points, I assume. But I mean, overall, to be honest with you, the big takeaway for me was just the good battles we had. It was almost good that I fell off the track, because then I was able to have some fun racing with Andy, which was super clean, and Liam. Like we had our own little cluster there for a little bit. I think that was after the second time I fell off the track, maybe. But the 3 of us, me, Liam, and Michael, all falling off in turn 1 together would have been a sight, I'm sure. So that was the cool thing. But yeah, for sure, the big bag of points is huge. And, we just got to roll the next one and keep that consistency and see where it takes us.
All right, Matt, we'll let you go celebrate again. Congratulations on a 2nd straight overall win in the eRacr Roval Racing Series. We'll see if you can make it 3 in a row next time out.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully, we can put on a good show for Virtual Racing School, Logitech G, Astro, Cube Controls, Sam Blacklock Media, and all of our partners. Thank you, guys.
Matt Danson, your winner tonight overall, and we'll go ahead and kick things off and keep it rolling here on our post-race coverage. Matt Taylor has caught up with Sean Butler. He's your winner of the NASCAR Xfinity Series class.
Matt, your B-Class winner tonight. Didn't have you look kind of boring out there for you. You didn't really have a whole lot of people behind. James Gibson, the A-Class, tried to give you a nice little battle there at the end, but in reality, nobody really looked like they had anything for you. So it looked like you were on a mission from last week and did a great job accomplishing your goal tonight. Go ahead and tell us how you were able to do it tonight.
Yeah, thank you. I learned my lesson on tire strategy last week for sure. I've not really driven the stock cars much, so all this is pretty new. Just trying to learn that. I wanted to avenge last week's mistake for sure.
Yeah, talk about that really quick. Justin Prince mentioned that coming into the race, he said you recently bought the car, which was mind-boggling to me, because last week you looked like you're a seasoned veteran out there going through the race. Just that one little mistake cost you at the end. But how are you able to get so used to these cars so quickly? They're not easy to drive in these road courses at all.
No, not at all. The biggest thing is the downshifting and under brakes and controlling wheel spin and really learning that. I drive the Lotus 79 a lot, so that car slides around, which I think has prepared me a lot for something like this. But tire fall off and everything else is an entirely new thing to deal with.
Absolutely, but you made it look easy out there tonight, Matt. So going to Indy next week, you think you can make it 2 in a row here in the number 8 Chevrolet?
I think so. I'm really familiar with the track and I like it. Just have to keep it clean again.
Well, you did a great job of that. If you could do it again next week, I think you got another smooth sailing race up ahead of you. But Matt, congratulations, man. Very well done. And good luck next week. We'll go to Indy as well.
Thank you.
Blake, back up to you.
Sean Butler catches up there with Matt Taylor. Again, a solid performance there for Matt, as, again, like you said, Sean, he really went unchallenged. And we'll go ahead and toss over to Josh Mendoza for our last winner tonight. Driver the number 74 Silverado is caught up with Josh Mendoza.
Hey, Jeremy, congratulations on winning the C class. And I say you got yourself a pretty good points day, closing in on that gap to the points leader there. How did it feel out there on track today?
It was slick. It was really slick. It was just a game of just controlling the throttle off of those really slow corners and just getting as much grip in the middle of the corners. That was just about it. I had zero clue what the hell I was doing out there. I had zero practice going into this, so I'm kind of surprised I even won.
Zero practice. Now that is a statement right there. No practice to go out there and win it. As the race went on, let's say around that restart, how were you feeling about that point, about winning your class? Did you feel like that was something that was still definitely within arm's reach, or do you feel like, okay, I'm gonna go for a second, third, fourth place finish here?
I was definitely thinking like second or third because the 6 and the 5 were kind of the class of the field in the first half. But I knew on that restart that was the only time I was going to be able to get the 5, so I raced him really hard going into turn 1 and through that the infield section, and then I got him when he messed up there coming out of one of the slow corners.
Oh, there you go. That's what you need to do. Going into Indy next week, what are your thoughts? You think you're going to be able to follow up with this performance? You think you can win it?
I don't think I'll be able to make next week, but I should be able to contend maybe the next week after, whatever track that is.
Well, there you go. Well, glad to do that. Do you anybody to thank for this performance today?
Yeah, I got to thank my sponsor, Smeel Racing Designs. John and his wife are always sponsoring me and always helping me out, so that's nice. And all the guys over at ARCS and All Elite Racing, those guys also big supporters of mine, so want to shout out those guys.
Well, we appreciate you coming out here. We'll miss you next week, but hopefully maybe we can see you next week, maybe not. But congratulations again on getting the C class win here at Pocono Raceway.
Thanks, Josh.
Very solid effort there from Jeremy. Rounds out your 3 winners for round number 2 of the eRacr Roval Racing Series. And Sean, I'll start with you. I think we got a little bit of taste of what this series was going to be like at Texas last week. And Pocono, a lot of the same, but again, totally different animal at a track that was so tough and so technical.
Yeah, for sure. Very kind of like I don't want to say like a 180 for these guys, but definitely a nice little curveball for them nonetheless. But it provided some exciting racing, some hair-raising moments too. But all in all, a very, very tough track, and the guys that won in their classes definitely deserved it. They proved to be able to manhandle the track better than everybody else. And Indy's going to be, I think, kind of similar. You know, it's going to be a little bit longer of a road course next week and a little wider than this one. So we might have some more passing zones in there. But this track definitely proved to be difficult. And I can't wait to see what Indy provides as well. This should be just as good, if not better, for next week.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the case, Josh, as we look forward to Indianapolis. More familiar territory, go in a reverse direction, but also something close to what we'll see in real life, but obviously we won't have multi-class racing out there.
No, we won't, but that's one of the exciting things about sim racing. We can get that whole experience here next week on the iRacing platform. As you were alluding, the similar track surface, in fact, it's going to be very interesting because the tunnel turn was actually designed after the Indy turn. Whether or not we'll see that this next week and see if they'll go through that turn is going to be interesting and how they handle it. But last week I said it, and I'll say it again. Consistency is going to be what wins you your championship. And Matt Danson has proved, as well as Matt Taylor, that they can go out there and they can succeed and get a lot of points. So the points battle is on. I'm very curious to see if we see somebody who may not have been able to make the first two races go out there and succeed again.
It is on, and like you said, I think the pace is shown by a lot of these drivers, but those that can consistently go out and finish at the top. And again, with this point-style system with 25 points, such a significant advantage over second and third, it will be nice to see how it all shakes out, and that consistency will be key to bringing home a class championship. So for everybody here at eRacr, of course, if you liked what you saw, tweet it out and follow us on socials at eRacr_GG. We're on Twitter, Instagram, we're on everything. And of course, we want you to tune in next Saturday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right back here for round number 3 of the eRacr Roval Racing Series. We'll tackle the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and I think Josh made a good point as well. We will basically see the tunnel turn just as it is in Indianapolis, the oval turn 1. So that's a really good point as well that we will be sure to see. Some of these drivers might be a little at least familiar with that. But from my wonderful broadcast partners and Sean Butler and Joshua Mendoza, and of course Justin Prince doing a spectacular job down on pit road, I am Blake McCandless saying so long tonight from the Pocono International Circuit. And there you see your 3 winners, Matt Danson, Matt Taylor, and Jeremy Bro, getting it done tonight at Pocono. We will see you next time.